Okay, good morning, everybody. I am so sorry about missing the last two webinars. I poured celery juice, as I was just describing before I went live or started recording. I spilled celery juice on my computer, and it was quite a fix to get it cleaned up and get my computer up and working again. So I'm happy to be back. Today, I wanted to talk about colon cancer. I don't really actually want to spend a lot of time talking about colon cancer and what it is, because I think many of you know about colon cancer. Instead, I wanted to share with you from a naturopathic perspective, what are some ways that we prevent, what specialty testing can we offer, and some natural treatment options. I feel like my tongue's natural treatment options. Colon cancer starts when tumors or polyps develop in the lining of the colon. These tumors and polyps, if removed early, if not removed earlier, can grow over time and become cancerous. Thus, it's really important to do early detection. Polyps, luckily, are they're generally slow growing. They can be present for 10 or plus years before cancer actually develops, but removal of them is vital. 30% of people with polyps that have been removed will have a reoccurrence, and that risk increases over time. So it's really important to get tested. Early detection is important, and removal is also vital. Testing, colonoscopy, colonoscopy is absolutely gold standard, no questions about it. Some of you may have had a physician that recommended a test to look for blood in the stool. A fecal occult blood test, or an FOBT, or a fecal immunochemical test, FIT, might have been given to you to either take home or done in the office. But I strongly recommend a colonoscopy over those blood tests. Looking for blood in the stool, so the FOBT. Some people have been given a CBC, which is basically a pretty basic test to look at your white blood cells, red blood cells. What they're doing with that test is they're looking for anemia. I think if we're looking for anemia and trying to connect it to colorectal cancer, we're probably a little bit too late. So strongly recommend that not being one of your testing measures. There is a blood test to look for tumor markers that colorectal cells make. CEA is what the test is called. This test is not used alone to screen or to diagnose cancer, and that is because some people who are negative for colorectal cancer might have CEA markers. People that have cancer might have negative CEA markers. So it shouldn't be used as a standalone. It's often used to monitor patients who have been diagnosed with colorectal cancer, to monitor their treatment, or how well treatment is going, or if it has returned. But I have had patients that have used that along with maybe genetic testing at an early age to then get a colonoscopy covered by their insurance at a much earlier age. Colon cancer is one of the most common inherited cancer syndromes known. I want to stress that. I think that's very, very important. There are a number of companies who are testing for those for those genes, MLH1, APC, there's another one, MSH2, are a couple companies test for those three. Color Company is a company that I have used. They only test for the APC gene, but they have found that mutation on the APC gene increases a person's risk of colorectal cancer by 70 to 100% by age 80 without surgical intervention. So, it's important to note that those genes I mentioned are not the only genetic mutations we see in colon cancer, but if you were to test that and say you do have the gene, then that might be something that you can share with your healthcare provider, and you can create a more personalized screening plan. And thus, if you're creating a more personalized screening plan, then you're increasing your chance of early detection. I understand that many people have some apprehensions about getting genetic testing. You know, some people don't want to know. Some people, if they do know, feel like, what are they going to do? I will say that that argument is your own personal choice. Colon cancer being so highly connected to being an inherited disease, I would strongly suggest that if people have a really strong family history, that they might want to consider getting that testing done. It's actually not that expensive. The Color Company, they do colorectal, breast cancer, and a few others, and I think the test is like $250. So not, not terribly expensive. But for me personally, I recommend to all my patients that they test for gastrointestinal function. That is my number one recommendation. When we see dysfunction in the GI or dysbiosis, that means inflammation is happening. And we know that inflammation, because I drill it into you guys most weeks, is at the heart of most disease, including cancer. So if you want to lower your risk, which as a naturopath, that's a big thing that we do, prevention. If you want to lower your risk, then lower your inflammation. That test I mentioned, a few companies do it. It's a stool test. It looks at your digestive enzymes. It maps out your microbiome. It looks for inflammatory markers. It looks for abnormal bacteria that shouldn't be in there, or pathogenic bacteria. It does look for occult blood, or it does look for blood in the stool. It's a really good marker of your overall GI function. The other test that I might recommend would be a food intolerance or food allergy test. This would probably be my number 2 recommendation. And that's because if you are eating foods that your body is sensitive to, or is producing antibodies to try to fight, right? Then your immune system is upregulated, which can lead to inflammation if you continue to eat those foods. So I generally recommend testing for food intolerances or allergens. I've mentioned it many times, not everyone who has food intolerances will experience gastrointestinal upset. So don't use that as your gauge of, should I get tested? The risk factors for colon cancer, some of them are modifiable, meaning there are things that you can do. Some of them are not. Some of them are hereditary. So the family or personal history of colorectal cancer, you can't do anything to prevent that, but you can look at your diet. There are many things about your diet that can increase your risk. Low calcium intake. In the literature, it will say high consumption of red meat. I will argue that red meat, if it's grass-fed and hormone-free, does not carry the same risk. I challenge that it's the crap that we feed our cows that increases our risk. So processed meat, though, is definitely on there, high nitrates, low intake of fruits and vegetables. I've talked about this again and again and again, but your body needs fiber. Fiber. Fiber comes from your fruits and vegetables. It also is high in antioxidants. It's what keeps your colon squeaky clean, and it's what feeds your good bacteria. As I talked about over, I think this past year, your gut microbiome is everything. Your fiber feeds your good bacteria, which makes short chain fatty acids. Your short chain fatty acids, in return, reduce inflammatory cytokine production. So the parts of your immune system that increases inflammation, so thus inhibiting inflammation and tumor growth. And they also increase cytokines that are anti-inflammatory. The GI stool test that I mentioned a few minutes ago, to look at your GI function, test for these short chain fatty acids. So another reason that I recommend that test. Heavy alcohol consumption can increase your risk. Smoking, long-term use of NSAIDs, personal history of inflammatory bowel disease, so ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, inactivity, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Remember, sugar feeds inflammation. Inflammation is at the heart of most diseases. So I've talked about kind of specialty testing that naturopaths might be able to offer. Some of your risk factors and preventative medicine, which naturopaths are always focusing on: prevention. And then we have some natural treatment options. It has been shown that some of the genes, the genetic mutations that you see in colorectal cancer, that some of those have more receptors for vitamin C. So if we flood the body with high doses of vitamin C, the vitamin C attaches to those genetic mutations and causes cell death. I don't see anything wrong. So they have been shown that higher doses of vitamin C may stunt colorectal tumors, and I see nothing wrong with taking high doses of vitamin C. Right? We know it's good for our immune system. We also know that selenium can offer protection against a variety of cancers. You want about 200 micrograms a day. Green tea, drink green tea every day, right? High in antioxidants, those protected polyphenols, those are really good. They definitely go hand in hand with cancer treatment. Herbs that are more specific for your GI would be L-glutamine. L-glutamine is a really important nutrient for the gut. It helps feed the gut lining, but it also helps healing with inflammation and repairing the intestinal barrier breakdown, which is what we see a lot in GI inflammation. Some people might be calling it leaky gut, but I prefer just dysbiosis or inflammation. Probiotics would be good for the gut. Digestive enzymes might be needed. There have been some studies that have shown propolis, which is that antioxidant-rich resin that honeybees produce that helps to kill colon cancer cells. They also inhibit colon cancer cell growth. Folic acid is chemopreventive, which means it may help delay or prevent the development of cancer. It has also been found, especially in the development of colorectal tumors, to inhibit the development. Other chemopreventive vitamins are vitamin D and calcium. So vitamin D, calcium, folic acid, 3 very important chemopreventive vitamins. N-acetylcysteine reduces the polyp proliferation. So those polyps, remember, are the potential precursors to colorectal cancer. CoQ10 has been shown to prevent lesions becoming malignant. Curcumin, which is anti-inflammatory. Fish oil, especially that DHA, has been also, both of those have been shown to inhibit colon tumors, proliferation, and help decrease inflammation in the gut. Those are my recommendations for gut health. I know that I have just blown through that pretty quickly. Does anybody have any questions for me? You can ask it or you can put it in the chat box. A copy of this will be on my website. Next week I will be off. I'm going to go on a little vacation. So I will not be here next week, but I will be the week after. Anybody that's interested, the following week on the 20th, Lisa and I are doing a yoga / lecture on stress. Any of you that are MAT members would like to attend that. I think there's still room, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me. I think it will be virtual, so you can attend that. I see a question. Hold on. It has been 10+ years since my last food allergy test. Should I get another one? Probably 10+ years. It's been a while. Things change. Could be for the better. Could be maybe some new things have shown up. But yeah, I would probably suggest getting a new one. Good question. Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you everyone for attending. Hopefully see you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.